Yo, what is up? Today I'm here for another video. Mystar, making my second video on YouTube. Lish, what the heck? Anyways, my second video on YouTube today. I'm still getting used to this whole filming without being on live. I feel like when I'm on live, it feels a lot more natural for me at this point in time, but it's alright, sometimes you step out of your comfort zone. So anyways, I wanted to talk today about like the concept of, because I was thinking about again what kind of stuff, and the ideas just come to me for some reason. I'm just like, damn, and then I'm like, that's a really good idea, and then I'm like, I should probably post it. But don't get me wrong, I have my doubts. I'm like, wait, should I even say this shit? But at the end of the day, I think I can be beneficial at someone, even if it's just for one person. Like, who gives a shit? Even if it's for nobody and it's just for me, like, okay, cool, like, that's good for me in my path too. So yeah, regardless, now that I've got that point out of the way, what's it called, I wanted to talk about, okay, and do a quick video, not too long, because for some reason this thing won't let me post on live. YouTube says you have to do like 15 shorts or something like that before you can post online. So regardless, I just want to do a quick video in general, and then I'll go live later on Twitch or Instagram or something like that. Or maybe I'll just film. But whatever, regardless, let's not get sidetracked with my Gemini Mercury. So, what's it called? I wanted to talk about how, I just went back on my notes. Yeah, I wanted to talk about how people are only going to really meet you as far as they've met themselves, and vice versa. You're only going to be able to meet people as far as you've met yourself, because like a lot of the stuff that, because at the end of the day, like we all know, especially if you watch some of my other Twitch videos, apologies if you haven't, because they are starting to delete and I'm not able to transfer them from Twitch to YouTube. I can download them, but I haven't got around to that. So besides the point. Anyways, what's it called? So if you've watched some of my other videos on Twitch, but if you haven't, then I'll just quickly go over basically when everything's subjective first and then objective. So this is why, for example, like you're receiving, when you wake up, like you're receiving sound, you're receiving light in your eyes and stuff like that. You're receiving information from around you in order to externalize after. So this shows you that it's like internal first, because receiving is related to the internal. So it's always internal first. It's subjective. This is why, like, what's it called? You think about something from your own point of view, and then once you add on to that, that's when you try to relate it and think about it from some other person's point of view. This is also a part of the reason to why 2 is the number of relatability, because you've got your own point of view, which is 1, and then 2, once you add on to that, you're relating your own point of view to something outside of you. It could be a person, place, or thing, but that's besides the point. So, what's it called? People are only going to be able to meet you as far as they've met themselves, because once they have their own point of view, they have the 1, right? You can't control whatever their 2 is. You can't control whatever they're relating their 1 to. And if they're relating that 1 concept, their own individual idea, if they're relating that to something in the external that isn't related to truth, like it might be rooted in a delusion, it might be rooted in a lie, or it might just be rooted in something that may be true for them, but it may not be true for you, which goes back to, like, as well, like, not everything is, just because something's right for you does not mean that it's right for someone else, and vice versa. Just because something's wrong for you doesn't mean that it's wrong for someone else. And yeah, I know that from personal experience, but regardless, we can see it in examples in reality too. For example, in certain parts of reality, sometimes, let's say, this is the best example I can think of off the top of my head, is like, let's say you spent your whole life being a people pleaser, right? And then someone else, they've spent their whole life being like more on the selfish side or more on the self-centered side. So what's right for you in that situation, you would want to, be a little bit more selfish so you can bring more balance, right? But for them, they want to be more selfless. So they might look at you and think, oh, that what you're doing is the wrong thing, because from their own subjective perspective, that, that is the wrong thing for them, but at the end of the day, they don't know the path and the lessons that you've gone through in order to get to where you're from, to where you are at, sorry. So that's my point I'm trying to make, is like, people are only really going to be able to meet you as far as they've met themselves, So if someone has met themselves to the point where they've come to the conclusion of what I was just saying, like, let's say they were more selfless, but they learning to be more selfish, and then they see someone else trying to be more selfless, if they were to get lost into a bias themselves, like, let's say, what's it called? If they would get to get lost into a bias themselves, and because they haven't met themselves at an equilibrium or an unbiased perspective to be able to know that other people relate to reality in a different way, This is what I was saying about, like, you can't control people's too. You can't control how they relate to reality. So you might relate to reality knowing that everyone has their own way of relating, right? But this person, or whoever it is that you're dealing in the external reality, they might just only relate to people in a way of them relating to them from their own subjective point of view. And regardless, at the end of the day, it's always subjective first anyway. So you relating to others and knowing that everyone has their own subjective point of view, you still have your own subjective point of view of that, if you get what I'm going with that. And that's where, like, everything has like a yin and yang. Everything has like two sides to it. Like some people say there's always two sides to the story, or whatever the heck. So it's a similar kind of concept. There's a reason why we have like these certain sayings. So when it comes to that kind of stuff, if you're able to know, at least if you're able to see that's subjective in itself, and everything is subjective at its root, and then it's objective afterwards. So even your ability to look at something objectively is still coming from your own subjective point of view. Like, you can't just completely jump out of being you. You can't just stop being you and then look at it for what it is, right? So you're still looking at it from subjective point of view. So take with that what you will, At the end of the day, it's just like seeing things for what they are, So once you know that, you're able to look at it from, like, at least the most unbiased perspective that you can possibly try to look at it from at that point of where you're at, in this current time. Because I can only speak for what I've experienced, and what I've gone through, and what the kind of stuff that I experience and see in my reality. So if you hear me say something like about, or don't say something like that could, like let's say, like, if you just hear me talking like this, for example, or similar along the lines of, or if I mention specifically, then you'll know, okay, he doesn't really fully know because he hasn't really gone through that part of the experience yet. And that's where that part of the experience, that's up to the individual, I might make videos later on once I actually do go through that experience, but right now it's up to the individual to be able to go through that individual experience for themselves. But yeah, you'll be able to look at it from the most unbiased equilibrium perspective for yourself, and be able to know, okay, at the end of the day, even you looking at someone and expecting them to be at a certain point or relate to you at a certain point is still a bias in a form, because you're trying to see them from your own perspective, from where you're coming from. And everyone's space is at a different location, If you have one space here, one space on one side, and one space on the other side, like, because at the end of the day, we're spaces within space, this is why you're able to differentiate when someone's smothering your space, but they might not be right next to you, right? So if someone's smothering your space, that's you representing, like, you as a space being smothered by someone else's space, which is nothing. You look out and you can't see it physically. You can't touch their space, so it's no thing. That's what your space is. That's what your spirit is. So if your spirit is one space in and location, right? Let's say you're on the right, and then you look at someone else's spirit and they're in the left. You're not going to be able to know what it's like to be on the left or to be the left spirit, right? Only thing you're going to know is what it's like to be able to subjectively see the objective point of view of what it's like to be on the left. So you're still looking at it from the right, at the end of the day. And as spirits, as spaces within space, or being no thing, that's you. So you can't just not be the space that you are, unless you're just non-existent, in which case you wouldn't be an individual spirit. You wouldn't be in a physical body. The fact that you have awareness, that shows that you exist. So that shows that you are a space, and you have a certain space or location or point of reference, or the first time, or space and location. This is why we have likes and certain dislikes too. If you have certain things that give you more thoughts and feelings that resonate to you, like that you more positively feel about, this is a representation of something that's a little bit more closer, or it might be resonating with your space and location within the esoteric or spiritual realm or whatever. And if vice versa, if it's something that you don't resonate with, you don't like that experience, that's obviously a representation of something that's opposing or not resonating to your space and location. So that's how it plays out in that respect. But yeah, you can't expect someone else's space to, know what it's like to be your space, because that's your space. You are that no thing, that individual solo spirit. So how can you expect someone else to know what it's like to be your individual solo spirit? You've gone through your own path and your own respects to be able to even get to that point. So if you're putting expectations onto others to be a certain way, or to act a certain way, or to play out a certain role in your life, you need to realize that that's you. That's your space. So the role that you think that others should play out is literally the role that you're meant to be playing out, because otherwise you wouldn't be aware of that. You wouldn't have those certain concepts. Like the other video that I made on YouTube, you wouldn't have those certain clothing in your wardrobe that you've made for yourself. That person can't wear that clothing because they can't make it. They don't know how to make it like you make it. So in the spirit realm, you're the initiator, you're the creator of that intellectual energy, or whatever you want to call it. So you're able to manipulate and maneuver your way around that the best. So the ins and outs, the rights and the wrongs. So if anyone's to look at anyone as an example, or to expect someone to do something, it should be you. But even then, in that case, nobody should expect you to do shit at the end of the day. But it's just to say, if you put expectations on anyone, it should be you putting an expectation on yourself to be the best you that you can be. Because if you're being aware of those certain concepts, you resonate with those certain concepts, that's resonating to your space and where your space and location is at. You know what I mean? So same thing like how I like to do videos, sometimes I sit here and think what's the point? Because I don't really, at the end of the day, I'm not trying to change anyone's mind. I'm not trying to change anyone's concepts of how they think and where they're coming from, which is also why I don't really give a fuck whether or not I even get any backlash or validation from this, because even if I was, I could just utilize it for whatever I want to utilize it for, whether it's backlash or not, But regardless, I'm just doing this because this is something that resonates with my space, I like the space that I get into. I like the thoughts and feelings that I develop when I'm trying to get into this energy of making videos on YouTube and so on and so forth. So, if I was to sit here and expect someone else to make a certain video that I really, really want, that's low-key, it's you're the one, I'm the one that should be making that specific video, because that's where the perspective that I'm seeing it from, that's the space that I'm observing it from, you know. And you're the observer, you're not the mind, you're not the thoughts and feelings. So if you're observing it and you're developing certain minds, you're creating certain minds to look at it in a certain way, then that's, you know, that's your perspective, that's your story. So this is why it's so important to share your perspective, to share your story at the end of the day, because you're literally one of a kind. Like, you are your, this is why, like, nobody, yeah, sorry, I'm delving into repeating myself, but you get the idea. You kind of, if you're following me with the start of the video to this part of the video, you're kind of getting the concept of where I'm going. You're one of a kind as an individual, so there's no thing like you, you know. You are literally no thing, so there cannot be no thing like you, you know. You are your own individual solo space, so that's you, you know. Well, that's not you, you know. You is more like a representation of, you know, the parts of yourself that you're creating in this physical reality in a way, because that's like once it's condensed into reality. But that's a whole nother video. I don't want to get too deep into that concept, because I still need to lay down some foundation so that whoever's watching, if they do come across that video, I want them to be able to go back and look at the other videos of what I've already laid the groundwork for you to be able to get that concept to its fullest extent. But anyways, yeah, you're one of a kind. So if you're getting certain ideas and concepts to make a certain video in a certain way, then, you know, that's your perspective, that's your space, and that would be really beneficial, you know, because you're just setting an example. You're doing you, you're being true to you. That's what it means to be you, you know. You express your own individual, one of a kind perspective, and not from a biased state of being where you're looking at it like one thing should be another or this. That goes back to the equilibrium, you know. If you're understanding that at the end of the day, everything is subjective and then objective afterwards, then you'll know, oh, okay, even when you think that it's in some way, shape or form that you're not being in a bias, that still in some way, shape or form can have biases attached to it. So, but once you actually know that, you're already stepping outside of that concept. And that's where you're in that space, tapping into that space as a spirit, being in that space of no thing, being true to you, you know, tapping into that space before you created a mind, before you developed those thoughts and feelings to jump into and use to navigate this reality and, you know, see this reality for what it is. You're just tapping into that space of no thing because you've jumped out of those concepts, you know, you've jumped out of those biases and you've seen, oh, okay, this reality is literally made up of biases. Like, that's what, like, we create, like, our thoughts and feelings, we create characters, and like at first it may not be biased, but once they condense, once they start to be more condensed, and you start to, like, for example, like, it's not biased by nature for you to jump into a character per se, because a character, it's just a character, you know. You've created that thought and those thoughts and feelings for a specific reason, for a purpose, for whatever you're trying to do in reality, you know. So this is how we create minds, you know. This is why, like, you can change your character too. Like, you're creating and destroying that shit on a day-to-day basis. So, you know, you can always jump into and create a new character for yourself, but if you're trying to be a character that someone else created, that's not your character, you know. So how are you going to be able to fix and mold that to yourself? Yeah, that's another video. That's my, like, related to my other video, how I was talking about, like, making your own clothes and shit like that. Some of the titles I'd be like low-key laughing at, but I don't even give a fuck, because, like, I just don't like having the same repetitive titles and shit like that. I want shit to be, like, genuine and original and stuff. But that's also, I have, like, freaking Uranus in the 10th house, so even when I'm trying to be like Uranus in the 10th house, Uranus is change, rebel, and opposition, right? And then it's also uniqueness and originality in a way. But basically everything I do, because it's in the 10th house, everything I'm known for will always be being known for being unique and original, or changing, rebelling, and opposing against old ways of being. So even if I'm trying to be like everyone else, like, my way of being like everyone else is innately not like everyone else. So That's just something that's in my chart that I like. Low-key, I see examples of it so much more the more that I like, you know, after I've already paid attention to that and so on. But yeah, what's it called? Yeah, once you get out of that bias love, once you hop out of that shit, you'll be able to see things for what they really are, you know? You'll be able to see your reality a lot clearer, and you'll be able to be one of a kind properly, you know? Not like one of a kind still stuck in the mind and trying to fit a certain character that is molded to you or something, or you're trying to mold a certain character to you, so on and so forth. So once you see that, you're like, okay, I'm the creator. At the end of the day, I can just jump in and out of whatever character I want. That's what the point I was trying to make before. Like, you know, characters are not biased by nature. At the end of the day, what becomes a bias is when you start to look at that character as the only way to be. But we are all spirits, we are all spaces, and spaces is no thing. So something, when you're being, that's like in a shape or a form, it's still a thing. You know, so even thinking or being a certain way, that's still a shape or a form of being a thing. So if you feel like you need to fit into that thing, that's like a restriction, that's like a cage in the mental realm. So, and not saying, like, I want to as well bring on to the other side, not saying any of these things are bad too, which ties into my point I was just trying to make, that like, it's just when you become lost into that and start to think that that's the only way to be, you know, because you are not those things. Like, that's what it means to get lost into Lucifer, lost into the light. When you think that you're those things, you think that you believe that lie that you're those things, when in actuality you're the creator of those things. You've just created those things for you to utilize as tools for you in this reality, you know. This is why, like, you know that you're not your brain or you're not your arm, you know. These are just tools that you've created for yourself. Like, shit is just a tool, you know. Use it for what it's worth. Use it for what it's made for. So, yeah. Freaking, well, before I go, don't mind the dirty ass window, but I'm just at this wood, so I'm about to go for a walk. But I wanted to make a video. Ooh, don't mind those. Yeah, I just want to walk because I want to fully be in the moment, you know. I want to really enjoy the presence of the woods, whatever the fuck. So yeah, basically, you know, don't get lost into those expectations, those concepts, those Lucifers, those lights, because at the end of the day, you are no thing. You are not a light, bitch. You are just like a space, you know, one of a kind. So, you know, as long as you stick to that, you be one of a kind. Don't get lost into any concept or idea, even your own, you know. You might have created a concept or a character for yourself, and you'll know when it's time to transform out of that character, because it will start getting uncomfortable, or like, not just, I don't just want to label it down to it starting to get uncomfortable, but you'll know when it's time to jump out of a certain character, because it'll be a certain time where it'll just feel outdated, or you'll feel imbalanced, or there's so many different ways. But I don't want to limit it to one concept as well, again, because at the end of the day, you are one of a kind. So you might experience that intuition, that sign, that synchronicity, that wisdom might come to you in some individual way for you, you know. For me, it comes in my own way. So yeah, laters, guys. I hope you guys have a great day, time, night, wherever you are. Peace. Well, not peace, because those are pieces. So wholeness, actually. I think I might start saying that. Wholeness, love. Hope you have a whole and a great day, you know. Fulfill your space, fulfill your whole with whatever you see fit, something that pleases you, something that fulfills you and satisfies your state of being. And you can gain some form of peace within that. So, laters.